So, are we starting?
I guess.
Hi, gals and guys. Hope you're listening because you saw our sponsored ad on Facebook and Instagram.
I didn't see any of them.
Well, maybe you're not in my target audience. I didn't see any of them either, but I paid for them, and we got a new like on Facebook and a new like on the picture. People in Missouri like us. That must be where that targeted audience is.
Wouldn't know. I don't social media much.
I don't know. Facebook just keeps offering me free credits to run an ad, so
Nice.
might as well. Oh gosh. Choked on my own spit. All right. Anywho, welcome to Cardboard Empire Secret Life Edition. We're starting season 3 this weekend. Switching it up a bit by only watching 5 episodes because Brenda Hampton decided to add 2 extra episodes to this season.
Yeah, that's what this show needs. More episodes.
I know, especially like when we could have condensed already in these first 5 episodes, but I don't make big bucks, so
these could have been 2 episodes.
It's above my pay grade.
Just a lot of people fighting about the same thing over 4 episodes.
My God, I can't.
Kind of just glad I listened to 1.5 of them at work.
Yeah, so like I started watching these Saturday night because I was bored and couldn't fall asleep, so it was like 10 p.m. And then I got to like episode 4 and I started falling asleep and I was like, Jen will watch it. And then like I started episode 5 and I got like 10 minutes in and I'm like, I can't. I'll have to rewatch this a different day.
Yeah.
So
I feel like they could have had the first episode and then just gone automatically to the 5th episode.
Yeah, because we'll just skip like what 2 days.
Yeah,
like for real,
or like a week. I don't know.
Not even because like when you think of flash forward, like Amy in New York, it was all her like first day there.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how she found out about it and then like had to leave the next day or something.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
With episode 1,
Do-over. Adrian tells Ben that she's not pregnant, much to his relief, but he questions whether she's telling the truth. Unbeknownst to Anne, George takes Ashley to the doctor to discuss birth control options. Jack's parents are moving out of town for a new job and give him the option to stay with a friend while he finishes school. Amy's confused about why Ben is avoiding her after he professed his love to her, and Ricky takes an interest in Ashley.
Well, so that was the longest recap they've ever had, and that sums up the first episode. Let's move to episode 2.
There's a bit more in there.
Yeah, so like they said,
not much.
And if you remember at the end of season 2,
I don't.
Adrian was taking a pregnancy test at Leo and Betty's wedding. So now that was like probably the weekend. Now we're Monday at school and Ben sees Adrian. You know, they just had that positive pregnancy test. And apparently they didn't talk for like over the weekend. And she lets him know, oh, it's no big deal. I started my period. Must have been a false positive. And Ben's like, woo, that's great. And she's like, yep. And so Adrian tells Ben that he's off the hook. And yeah. And then Ben sees Henry and Alice at school and he tells them the good news.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Grace confronts Adrian once again.
Mm-hmm. And Adrian lets Grace know she's not pregnant as well.
Yeah, and she's like, how?
False positives.
Yeah, even though that's like the rarest thing on the world.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Ashley and Adrian talking together, and Ricky decides to go up to them and let Ashley know that Adrian's a bad influence.
Ashley also told Adrian that she told her dad about the pregnancy because that's how she was able to get birth control pills.
Well, not yet, because Ashley still needs to get those pills.
Well, we haven't gotten to the appointment yet, but Ashley still tells Adrian that George knows. And then George, like, connects the dots. And she's like, oh, you did that to convince him to let you go to the doctor.
Mm. All right. And then Ashley tells Ricky that she has a sex life, which is not true, but for some reason Ashley and Ricky just have some weird chemistry and vibes going on, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then Amy and her gaggle of girls talk about Ben, and that Ben hasn't called her yet, but Ben says he loves her, and basically that, and if they had sex with their boyfriends.
And then we see Ben walk by and actively avoid Amy.
Mm-hmm.
And during that walk, he's realizing the school is kind of figuring things out about him and Adrian.
Because Jack congratulates him for not being pregnant, because I guess Grace has already told Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to George and Ashley at the doctor, and they're talking to the doctor about birth control, and the doctor notices George's hair plugs and lets him know that they're a little infected, and so he should get those out.
Yeah. The doctor's also not happy with the way they're approaching this, because she, like, sees right through their lies. Doesn't like secrets.
Yeah. And then we go over to the Jurgens house, and Amy and Anne are talking about Ben, and Anne's kind of like, hey, Amy, why don't you hit the brakes a little bit? But Amy says, well, Ben is Ben.
Yeah.
And then Anne talks to Amy about the note that she got from Ashley saying that Ashley's trying out for track. Apparently, that is Ashley and George's cover story.
Yeah, and Amy sees right through that.
Mm-hmm.
She figures it out that Ashley's going to go get on the pill.
Yeah. And then we head over to Ben's house, and Ben is leaving Adrian a voicemail trying to be like, are you pregnant? Are you not? And then all of a sudden Grace shows up because Grace still likes Ben, and Grace got her license and wanted to go see Ben like Ben did for her. And Ben basically tells Grace, like, not a good time. He's heading out. And that's kind of when Ben is learning that Adrian told people about that. And then it's just a really awkward moment with Grace.
Yep.
And she gives him a kiss on the cheek and leaves her lipstick mark.
And then Ben calls into work again, and Bunny's not happy. Just basically like telling him to get his life figured out.
Yeah, but Bunny can see into it and asks Ben if Adrian is in trouble, which Ricky overhears. And Ricky kind of puts 2 and 2 together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he says he's going to go help Ben after work.
Yeah. And then we get to Madison and Jack are making out in his truck, and basically Madison is super worried about Adrian and the Ben and Amy drama. And to get her to shut up, Ben tells Jack that he loves her. And basically Madison won't accept his love unless he gives her a ring or a necklace.
She just wants a gift.
Yeah, she wants to be able to show people that he loves her. And then Ben goes over to Adrian's house. Ben doesn't believe that Adrian isn't pregnant, and asks her if she got an abortion.
And she's just not wanting to talk to anybody.
Right. And then we go next door to the Juergens house, and Ashley and George are home, and Ashley's decked out in her new track uniform to share the good news of getting onto the team, allegedly. And then we see that George also got his hair plugs removed.
Yeah.
So then Anne for sure knows that they were at the doctor.
Well, George could have just been there on his own.
Yeah, well, that's what he tries to tell her. And then we go over to Grace's house, and her mom asks why she's home so early, and Tom basically says that Grace has no friends. And Grace is sad about Ben, and Kathleen then asks about Adrian.
And Grace just spills the tea on everything.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Ricky over at Ben's house, and he's confronting Ben because he saw Ben over at Adrian's.
You forgot the most important part.
What?
Ben talking to his socks and doing a weird dance as he's organizing them.
Didn't remember.
I remembered. It's hard to forget.
Yeah, so Ricky confronts Ben because he saw him at Adrian's when Ricky was over at Amy's. Then he confronts Ben about not calling Amy. And then Ricky decides to have the brilliant idea of bringing Ben to Amy's house so they can finally talk.
It's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. And then we get to Jack's house, and Jack wants to talk to his parents. His parents want to talk to him. So first he asks them about giving Madison a gift for saying I love you, which his mom is like, oh, well, your stepdad gave me this necklace of a bird when he told me he loved me for the first time. And so, yeah, you should do that. And then they let him know that...
You ever been given a gift when someone says they love you? Because I haven't.
No. Nope, not at all.
No.
Nope.
Nor have I ever encountered that in the wild.
I don't think I've ever had, like, a big romantic gesture of saying I love you.
No. I don't think anybody has.
Like, even when I was 16, like, it wasn't...
No, it's like over text.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it was no big thing.
No. We start saying it way too early, way too young, and then it's like, it's not a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, so Jack's parents are like, hey, your stepdad got an offer to go be a professor at the school in Arizona, so we're leaving the church. But, you know, we know it's going to be your senior year, so, like, go find a friend to live with, because we don't want to take you with.
I don't think that was entirely it.
Yeah, but, like, this whole conversation was so...
It was so quick and, like, robotic.
And,
but it was more like, hey, your dad got this job offer.
But there was...
And he's like, but I can't drive 6 hours to school and back every day. And they're like, well, yeah, we know that.
The idea of, like, letting him live with a friend, I feel like most parents would be like, that's too bad, you're coming with us, we're a family, get over it.
I don't know. It is their senior year, and I think he is 18 by now. And
Maybe.
uprooting someone in the middle of their last school year is rough. So I think that's why, like, hey, let us know your decision, because if you want us to stay, we'll stay.
But,
they
like,
said that to him, but they're also like, but it is your dad's dream job.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Yeah. And I think if you, like, had a close family friend, like, I think parents would be okay with you staying, especially since it is only 6 hours, I think. They could still visit on the weekends.
Yeah. So basically it's like, yeah, I'll find some place to live. No big deal. And then we see Ricky talking to Ashley. And basically she's all like, are you having sex? Blah, blah, blah. Do you have a companion? It's just super awkward. But while that just uncomfortable conversations happening, another one is happening inside between Ben and Amy. And they talk and make out, and they're back together. Yay! Kill me.
And Ricky did tell Ashley not to have sex in high school.
Yeah, but basically he's like, I'm waiting for a companion. Are you my companion? But then the first call Jack makes is to Madison to be like, hey, can I live with you? And so Madison asks her parents, and they basically laugh at her and be like, no.
Yeah. Because she expects, she'd be like, well, we'd be at school all day. We'd only be sleeping here. And then it's like, and he's going to sleep in my room. And they're like, no, hon.
Not at all. And then we see Anne trying to get Ashley to admit that she's on the pill. And so, or Anne goes to Ashley and is like, hey, let's go for a run. If you're going to be in track, we need a train. And Ashley's like, no. And then she's like, fine, I got on birth control. And for some reason, that's a huge deal. And I'm like, thank God George got her on the pill. And during this conversation between all of the Jurgens in Ashley's room, Ashley rats out Amy for being on the pill as well. And for some reason, that's a problem too. Like, fuck, she already had one kid.
Yeah. It's like, you guys clearly have a fertile family.
Yeah. And basically, Amy says the only person who loves her is Ben.
Yeah. Not even John.
And Anne is basically like, yo, family, we're a hot mess. From now on, we're all going to talk to get our family fixed.
Yeah. And is that when she institutes the family dinners, or is that the next episode?
She kind of mentions it, but it's not official. She mentions it to George. We all used to talk and have dinner together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Ben calling Leo to tell him about being back together with Amy. And yeah. Leo and Betty are on their honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go over to Adrian's house, and Ruben's talking to Adrian and tells her that he loves her and thanks her for bringing their family back together. And the episode ends with Adrian calling the teen pregnancy counselor to talk about options. And that's where it ends. We learn that Adrian is indeed pregnant.
Wow, big shocker.
I know, right? As you can tell, we were very excited to talk about that episode. I used a lot of enthusiasm.
Now, episode 2, this is the one I listened to at work, so I don't have notes for it, but I may be able to chime in with things I remember.
I do have notes in chronological order.
It's called Accentuate the Positive. You get it? Because positive pregnancy.
Ha!
Though Ben and Amy are excited to be back together, Amy weighs an opportunity to study music over the summer in New York, but has to juggle her responsibilities as a mother, and Ben is still uncertain if Adrian has been honest with him. Meanwhile, Ashley skips school to help comfort Adrian through bouts of morning sickness, and Ricky, who overhears that Adrian might be pregnant, goes to confront her about it, and Jack is desperately trying to find someone to stay with so that his parents can move away. Again, that is the episode.
Why are they so long?
I don't know.
The last season, it was Adrian has a secret. That would be it.
Yeah, one vague sentence.
Anywho, so this episode starts with Ben leaving Ricky a voicemail thanking him for getting him and Amy back together. How sweet. And while he's leaving that voicemail, Henry and Alice walk into his room because no one in the show has boundaries and are bringing him all of the pregnancy test facts, basically saying false positives, blah, blah, blah. Basically, trying to be Adrian's pregnant, get your shit together, Ben, and get your head out of your ass.
Yeah. So saying that false positives are pretty much the rarest thing on earth. If a pregnancy is going to screw up, it's going to be a false negative.
Yeah. And so Ben basically tells them to shut up and that him and Amy are back together and that they're a family. And then we go to Adrian's house, and Adrian is feeling a little ill after smelling some leftover pizza. So she's like, fuck, morning sickness. And then we get to Ricky, and Ricky has a voicemail from Ben, and as he's listening to the voicemail, we learn that Ben never hung up.
Nope.
So during his voicemail, Ricky overhears all of the conversation that Ben had with Henry and Alice about Adrian, and now knows that Adrian is pregnant.
Finally.
Yes. And then we get over to the Jurgens house, and Amy is mad at Ashley still about telling the parents about being on the pill, which, like, shut up, Amy.
Yeah, so they're not speaking to each other.
And Amy is dressed like a little hoochie because she's ready to see Ben. Like, she's wearing, like, a bodycon skirt that we all would wear, like, freshman year of college to go to Rum Runners in St. Cloud. A pink lacy bra hanging out of her tank top. And, yeah, it's something else. And
I never went to Rum Runners in St. Cloud.
Good.
During my 2 years there.
18-plus bar.
Oh, I remember.
I went once, and it was after I went. It was like the day after Taylor's birthday party that we went to, when you guys gave me the handle of, like, Dragonberry Bacardi. So we still had some of that left, and we pre-gamed with Taco Bell Baja Blast slushies and the Bacardi mixed.
Sounds delightful.
It was amazing.
Sounds like gut rot, but...
Yeah, but, like, you're 18, so that doesn't exist yet.
Oh, it does.
What are you eating? Excuse me, don't eat on your podcast.
I'm trying not to. I just haven't eaten yet today. And it took longer than expected. I was supposed to eat it quickly beforehand, but it finished right when we started.
Well, let me continue talking then. And so basically, George lets the kids know that they're having family dinner, and Amy throws a tantrum because she's supposed to go
on a date with Ben tonight.
Yeah, and so she's throwing a tantrum, and George is like, whatever, tell Ben to eat here. And then Ashley decides that she's going to ask Adrian for a ride to school because she doesn't want to ride with Amy, and Amy's taking forever. So Ashley goes over to Adrian's house and sees her getting sick and decides to stay home with Adrian and take care of her.
How funny. I'm eating pizza when the food that made Adrian throw up was pizza.
Yeah. And then we get over to the Bowman's house, and Grace and her stepdad are talking about pregnancy tests and if they can be wrong or not. And he's, like, giving her real medical facts and blah, blah, blah. And then Grace is like, you know what, you're wrong. Like, she's not pregnant, and storms away. And Kathleen's like, good talk with Grace to her husband. And he's like, yeah, if you want her to hate me. Which is kind of funny. And then Ben is talking to Henry and Alice at school, and they're like, yo, you gonna tell Grace that you're with Amy now? And Ben's like, nah. Which is rude. And then Ben is freaking out at Alice because of this, and then Grace decides to confront Ben about Amy, and he's basically like, yeah, we're together, sorry. And Grace then asks Ben if he's heard from Adrian, and he hasn't. Yeah, it was just all a little dramatic. But then we see Grant, who does not go to school at the school, at walking around, and
he's thinking about transferring.
He's thinking about he's enrolling, actually. And Ricky goes up to him and tells him to stay away from Ashley, and which Grant is like, yeah, that's weird, dude. And then Griffin tells Grant it's a bad idea to transfer schools too because it's going to push Ashley away. And then we see Ricky calling Ashley to check in as to why she's not at school. And he's like, your sister's looking for you. And Ashley's like, no, she's not.
Yeah, or like, why didn't she call me herself?
Right. Super awkward. But then after they hang up, Ashley's like to Adrian, yo, Ricky just called me. And Ashley asks Adrian if she still loves Ricky, and Adrian says she's not in love with him. And that brings us to Amy getting called into the counselor's office. And
it's like, sorry, I don't have time for this. I have to go talk to Ben because we were supposed to go out, but now we can't.
Yeah, and is like freaking out about that. And basically the counselor's like, shut up, I have better news. And lets her know that she was accepted into a music program in New York that could be a stepping ground to Juilliard, and it's full ride. You get a dorm, etc. And it takes Amy a little bit to comprehend what's happening. And then she's like, wait, in New York?
Mm-hmm.
And the counselor's like, yeah, but you need to make a decision soon.
She's like, well, I can't go to New York. I have a baby.
And Ben, blah, blah. But then she's kind of like, I'll think about it. So then Madison and Lauren talk to Amy about the program and are like, you need to go. And then Ricky comes up to Amy and tells them about this. And Ricky says he's sorry that he pushed Ben to get back together with her and that she should go to New York.
And then she's like, wait, you pushed Ben?
Yeah. And then we see Amy telling Ben about New York and that they can't have a date night, but he can come over. And it's all just kind of weird. And then we get to the Bowman's house, and Grace is whining to Kathleen because Ben broke up with her, but like they weren't even together.
Is this the part with the jeans yet, or is that the beginning of the next?
This is the part with the jeans. So Grace gets home from school. She's all pissed off because Ben broke up with her. And she sees her mom in these low-rise flare jeans. And she's like, Mom, those are my jeans. Why are you wearing my jeans? And Kathleen's like, they're not your jeans. And then she's like, well, you were getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm. So I just took them out of the donation pile or whatever.
Yeah. And then Jack shows up at the Bowmans, and Grace is like, don't be here. And he's like, well, I'm here to talk to your mom. And so he talks to Kathleen about moving in, and Kathleen was kind of like, nah, like with you having sex with Grace and then us trying to start a new family, it's just not a good time.
Nobody wants Jack.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. And then we get over to Ashley at Adrian's house, and like, this is supposed to be after school, but it seems like it's more during the beginning of school. I don't know. But they're eating ice cream and making ice cream sundaes. And then Adrian said that Ben can't handle reality because he's a rich kid. Yeah. So that's why she's not being honest with him. And then Adrian decides that she wants to get an abortion. And all of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. They see that it's Ricky, and Ashley's like, I'll wait for you upstairs.
No, doesn't she first say, I'll get rid of him for you? Do you want me to get rid of him?
And she's like, no, I need to deal with this. And then she's like, okay, well, I'll wait for you upstairs. And so Adrian opens the door, and Ricky is crying. And is like, are you pregnant? And
she doesn't say anything.
So the look,
yeah.
He knows, and he runs off. And yeah, so then Ben and Ricky are at work. And Ricky confronts Ben about Adrian because Ben's like rearranging pasta, and Ricky's like
organizes them alphabetically.
Something on your mind? Like, what's going on? Like, trying to fish it out of him. And then he's like, so Adrian's pregnant, basically. And Ben is in some major denial.
Well, yeah, he just wants to live in Ben and Amy fantasy world. Everything's fine.
Period. Blah, blah, blah. And Ricky's like, yeah, no. And then we go over to Juergen's house, and George gets home, and Anne hasn't made dinner, even though they're supposed to have their special family time. And so George is kind of sad about that because he was so excited, to fix the family's problems. and is like, that we were starting family dinner, and Anne's like, no one said tonight.
Yeah.
And so they decide to order in some Chinese food. And while they're ordering food, Ashley comes back, and Anne is like, basically like, I know you skipped school. And basically during that conversation, Anne lets Ashley know that she's an adult now, apparently, because she wants to be, and she can do whatever she wants and figure it out on her own. And Ashley's like, I'm the boss of me. And Anne's like, yeah, guess so. Take care of yourself.
Have fun.
Yep. And then we go back to the Bowman's house. And during the conversation with Kathleen, Kathleen invited Jack to eat dinner. And so they're all eating dinner together. And Grace is worried about Adrian. And basically, Jack tells Grace to, like, stay out of it. It's not their problem. Like, if she wants to have an abortion, they can't fix that. It's not up to them. Like, why don't they
I did like that conversation. Jack finally, like,
smart for
spoke
once.
Yeah. It's like, it's between Adrian and God now, and it's not up to us to judge her.
And Grace doesn't like that. And then we get over to the Jurgens house, and they're all fighting, and then Ben shows up, and he has flowers. And give to Amy. And during the conversation at dinner, Ben is being really, like, scary with his words. He's being very, like, I don't know, basically, like, you know, he has a secret. And so, because the Jurgens are all fighting, Amy's like, how about you go home, Ben? And they're saying goodbye, and Ben's making it seem like he's never going to talk to Amy again.
Yeah, she's starting to pick up on things. Something's going on.
Yeah, and so during this then, Ashley tells Amy that she should go to New York. And
yes.
So, well, Amy tells Ashley that she got into the program, and Ashley's like, you should go.
Because Ashley knows the fallout of this is going to be massive.
Yeah.
Like, you should just be on the other side of the country.
Yeah, just go. And then we get to the Boykovich's house, and Leo's home from his honeymoon, and he notices that something's wrong with Ben. So Ben breaks down and tells him all about Adrian, and Leo is just Leo, and I want him to give me a hug too. He's the, like, dad I never had, really. The kind of, like, whatever, you know what I mean?
And then isn't it...
No. That was the end.
No, because I thought there was something, maybe it was the beginning of the next episode.
In the middle of the night? Ashley?
No. With Leo and his wife. I can't remember her name.
Betty?
Yeah, and she, like, says there are worse things in the world than...
That's the next episode.
Okay. Yeah, see, I missed the first 14 minutes of the next episode.
Yeah.
And then I got...
So why don't you tell us the super long recap of episode 3?
This one's only a sentence.
Oh, well, good, because I only have about half a page of notes, so obviously it wasn't great.
This
is the worst episode.
All right, episode 3, Get Out of Town. Everyone rallies around Amy so she can attend the music program.
Not really, but okay.
Well, we do get that really awkward montage towards the end.
Yeah, I can't with that one.
A lot of montages in these episodes.
Oh, no. That's the next episode is the montage.
No, there's this one. Towards the end before the dads meet.
Yeah, okay. So basically, like you said, this episode starts with Betty being the best to Leo and Ben, and like you said, she said there's a lot of things that could be worse than being pregnant.
She was basically like reminding Leo of what he said when everyone found out Amy was pregnant. He's like, there's worse things in this world than 2 teenagers having a baby. You know, no one's sick, no one's dying.
Yeah.
We'll get through it.
Yeah, so Leo's upset still, but they call it a night. And then we see Adrian calling her mom to see when she'll be home because she had to leave right after the honeymoon and work. And her mom's like, are you sure, like, something wrong? Like, I'll be home tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And her mom's name is Cindy, I found out.
Me too.
But Cindy's getting some mom senses. Yep. And so Adrian makes some late night food, and all of a sudden her dad runs downstairs because Cindy called him to be like, go check on our daughter.
Yeah. And she's calling me in the middle of the night. So
yeah, so just tell me she loves me. So they're making sandwiches.
I could go for a sandwich right now.
It looked really good.
Maybe I'll order a sandwich for dinner.
You just ate pizza.
Well, I ate a couple bites of it.
We're having leftover spaghetti, and Nick's picking up bread, so we can make some garlic bread. But then Ben calls Adrian, and she still won't be honest with him, which is just fucking annoying. But I get it. Like, she just wants to take care of this silently, not worry anyone, I guess. And then Ricky and Ashley are talking, and it's just so weird. Why are they talking so much? And then we go to Anne, and Anne's got a job interview in the morning. And she tells George that Robbie's going to be starting daycare because she's got the job interview. And George is mad for whatever reason that Robbie's going to daycare and is like, you need to be the only one taking care of him. We don't need strangers. And it's just like, okay, George.
It's totally okay if John goes to daycare.
Yeah. So that was annoying. And then all of a sudden, as they're talking, they hear a glass drop in the middle of the night. Definitely not pre-planned. And it was Ashley who wakes her parents up because she wanted to let them know that she just is really worried about Amy and wants Amy to go to this music program. And they're all like, yeah, okay.
Really already there?
Yeah. Like, yeah, okay, we'll take care of it.
It's like 15 minutes in, because that's where I picked up my notes again.
And then we get Grace talking to her stepdad about Adrian again. And then we get Tom wanting to get a job.
I did like in the talk with the stepdad, because Adrian's like going on. She's like, hey, are there any...
You mean Grace?
Yeah. And she's talking to her stepdad, asking her stepdad if she knows of like any pregnancies that haven't gone well and if those families want a baby, because she wants Adrian's baby to be adopted by them. And the stepdad basically is telling Grace, like, mind your own business. This doesn't involve you. Just focus on yourself. You've got your med camp coming up again this summer. You want to be prepared. He's basically just putting her in her place.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that if this show were to have continued today, Grace would have turned into the worst kind of Karen.
She would be the gun girl.
I don't know if she'd be a gun girl.
She'd be Caitlin Bennett. I don't know.
She'd like turn into one of those evangelists.
Yeah, she would be a Duggar.
Yeah.
And then Tom is mentioning that he wants to get a job and married in an apartment. And they're kind of like, are you doing, like, who do you want to marry? Like, you can't marry Adrian or whatever. And he's like, no, I'll marry Tammy. And then Kathleen's like, I think getting a job is a good idea, but like an apartment, not really. But we have the guest house you can stay in. Yeah. And he's like, oh, but it's haunted.
Yeah, by the ghost of Dad.
Yeah.
The mom's like, we don't believe in ghosts in this house, honey.
Yeah. Then we get to Jack, and Jack talks to his mom about places to stay and is like, well, I can just stay with Coach if I need to. Yeah. And then he also tells his mom about Adrian and Ben. And this was just super weird because, like, after that, she's like, oh, that's a shame. But she's, like, talking to him as, like, be careful out there. Like, acting like getting a girl pregnant is, like, going off to war. Like, okay. Which, I mean, true, like, wear a condom, Jack. Like, you're an idiot, so. But, like, I just want to mention that his mom is the worst actress in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, watching her act is cringy.
A lot of the parents are.
Yeah. She reminds me of, is it one of the, like, witches from Casper and Wendy? Or is it one of the aunts? The Hillary Duff one? How she has like those 3 crazy aunts.
I don't remember that movie at all.
I'll send you a picture of what I'm thinking about later. Anywho. But so, yeah, she's like sending him off to war because he's going to high school. And then we see Ben and Adrian at school. And Adrian is avoiding Grace. So she's like, hey, Ben, will you go check? Like, you can't do anything for me, but can you go check around the corner and tell Grace to fuck off? And so Ben talks to Grace about leaving Adrian alone. And that was awkward. But then we see Ben and Amy at school. And Amy lets Ben know she's going to New York. And so she then goes to talk to the counselor about it, and the counselor's like, oh, good, because you have to leave tomorrow. And then Ricky tells her that she needs to go, and Ashley says yes. And Lauren... so then this is the creepy montage of, like, it's supposed to be from Amy's point of view of her going to go talk to everyone in her life.
Yeah, about to get their opinion.
And it's just... It made me sick watching it, like, just, like, not like it was bad, but like just like the viewpoint of it, like the camera, it was like,
yeah, a lot of quick cuts and shit. Yeah. It's like, yeah, Amy, you should go. And I like the one chick that was like, yeah, you should go, then maybe everyone will stop talking about you.
Yes.
Okay. Why was this necessary?
Yeah, and I was like, why is this a weird camera angle? And then we see Amy packing, and her parents are talking to each other, and then all of a sudden her mom's like to George, basically, let's sleep together tonight. Wink, wink.
Gross.
And then we see Ruben and Leo are at dinner together, and Leo spills the beans to Ruben and is like, yo, your daughter's pregnant, what are we doing?
Yeah. He's like, wait, what?
Yes. So then Ruben goes home and he's talking to Adrian about it.
I forgot how Ruben freaks out on Leo. And he's like, you want Adrian to get an abortion? Are you going to offer us money for Adrian to get an abortion? Because we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and Leo's like, no.
Leo's like, chill.
And then Ruben does apologize.
Yeah.
And then... basically, Ruben is talking to Adrian about it and is, like, reminding her that they don't believe in abortions.
He was raised Catholic.
Yes. And then we see Ben pacing back and forth in his room, and Leo talks to him to let him know that he told Ruben and he apologized, but then... Leo's like, have you told Amy yet? And Ben's like, no.
No, I don't need to.
Yes.
I'm going to keep living in my fantasy land.
Right. And then we see Amy and Ricky are talking while Amy's packing, and basically Amy family zones Ricky. So basically, though, Amy is like, hey, I'm glad that you're going to be around while I'm gone for John. And then basically asked Ricky to stay at her house so John has his set schedule. And Ricky's like, fine, I'll do that for you. Because I think he also knows, too, that, like, Amy needs to get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'll do that for you. And she's like, oh, thank you, I love you. But, like, I love you like a brother.
Yeah, or like the father of my son.
Ricky's like, gee, thanks. And then... we get Ruben talking to Cindy about Adrian and lets her know that Adrian's pregnant. And and then we get to another awkward moment where Ashley and Ricky are talking again. And Ashley is like, are you sleeping with Zoe?
Because it's all over school.
So awkward.
No, that's the next episode.
No, that's when we actually see Zoe. This is just, Ashley's like, I thought you didn't have companions. Why are we hearing about Zoe? And then the next episode, we actually see Zoe.
Yeah, I guess I just thought it was the next one because when Zoe's going around spreading the rumors.
I think this is setting up for that. So that's how this ends. And it's just awkward. And setting the scene for more awkwardness between Ashley and Ricky.
Did you also say that Ruben told Adrian's mom?
Yep.
All right. Goodbye,
All right.
Amy Jurgens.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of episode 4.
Yeah.
Well, the audience doesn't know.
Yeah, is there a recap?
Yeah. Amy, still unaware that Adrian is pregnant, is off to New York for the summer, and she and Ben profess their love at the airport. In the early morning hours, Ben goes to Ricky's apartment for advice on Adrian and finds that Ricky has a new love interest. Adrian looks to her mother for guidance, who talks about her own experience as a teen mother and offers her support for whatever Adrian needs, or whatever she decides. George is worried about Amy being alone in New York and about Ricky moving into Amy's room while she's gone to help care for John, putting Ricky and Ashley under one roof. Ruben and Cindy realize they are at odds over Adrian's decision, and Adrian receives a surprise proposal.
Mm-hmm. So I think I zoned out for the first part of this because I started it with Ben at Ricky's house. I don't have anything about Amy going to the airport.
Amy going to the airport is later. It does start with Ben talking to Ricky about the Adrian situation. He shows up there at 5 a.m. And remember, Ricky's like, "What are you doing here so early? Couldn't this have waited till later?" And he's like, I got to get it off my chest. You said I could come here if I needed to talk. And Ricky's like, "Okay, we'll talk. But remember, I was just asleep 5 minutes ago." So
yeah, so I still don't have anything about Amy going to the airport. But yeah, so like you said, Ben is at Ricky's. He wants to talk about Adrian, and he's spiraling. And then I have, but while they're talking, Zoe's there.
yeah, and she comes down to see what the commotion was.
Yeah. So
Ricky Ben was like, I didn't think you were sleeping with anybody.
Yeah, so then I said, don't people have parents? And I thought Ricky doesn't do sleepovers. But Zoe heard some things she shouldn't, so keep that in mind. And then we see Adrian's mom came home, and she's making Adrian some breakfast, her favorite blackberry jam that she steals from the plane.
Yeah, I wonder if they don't realize that you can just buy that at the grocery store. They made such a big deal about it.
Delta one. But then Adrian moms tell her that she already knows about her being pregnant, and basically Cindy's the best. And Adrian tells her mom that she wants an abortion, and during that, her mom basically tells her story of how she was pregnant with Adrian, and it was basically she got pregnant, her parents stopped treating her like their child and just like a roommate, essentially.
Staying on the family.
Yeah, and so Cindy had considered an abortion, but she didn't get one, and basically talks about how even though her life was harder because she had Adrian, she's still glad she didn't have an abortion. And basically, like, she became a flight attendant because it was the only job she could get young, and she had the opportunity to leave being a flight attendant, but she stayed because she liked the fact that whenever she was out on trips, she could pretend she was someone else and not a mom. But still doesn't regret not getting an abortion. And so Adrian's like, what, are you telling me this because you like hate having me as a kid or what?
Yeah. Like, do you not support my abortion decision, or do you just hate that I exist? I don't know where you're going with this convo, Mom. Either way, it makes me feel shitty, so thanks.
Yeah, but basically Cindy's like, I'll support you no matter what. And then we see Ashley and George. They're talking about Ricky, and basically George said, talk about Ricky. And George is concerned.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't get any funny ideas while he's living here. And Ash is like, oh, well, I already have a boyfriend. And oh, look, he's calling me.
Yeah, so then Grant calls Ashley, and Ashley says Grant can't transfer to the school. And Grant's like, well, I love you. And then I said...
And then also that he wants to keep an eye on her.
Yeah, because he's getting some bad vibes about Ashley and Ricky. And then...
I honestly think there wouldn't be any bad vibes if everyone just give it a fucking rest. Because it starts out very much as he's just like an older brother, you know? He's protective. And then, but I think everybody just keeps shoving this narrative on them. And they're like, well, fuck it. You know, everybody already assumes.
Yeah, and then we see Tom trying to go to his job interview. He is supposed to take the bus to it, but he calls Jack and says he's lost. And so Jack comes to get him and takes him to his job interview. And it's at the courthouse, and as he's waiting for his interview, he talks to another man.
We're just like jumping way far ahead.
Why? That's
because there's a lot of stuff that happens at school before Jack calls Tom.
Okay, like what?
Like Madison and Lauren are talking about Adrian and Jack, and they get in a fight because this happened. Tom leaves for the interview, but then it cuts away to school, and then we get all of this shit, and then we get
So Tom has a job interview. He asks Grace for a ride, and Grace is like, no, you can take the bus, because if you're going to work, you need to learn how to take the bus.
Yeah, cool. So she has to go to school.
Sorry. And then, we're at school, and Lauren tells Madison, like, oh, good news. My mom said Jack can live with us, because her brother said that he needed a spot to live. And Madison's like, no, he can't, because that's my boyfriend, and you guys are going to have sex if he lives there. And Lauren's like, you don't trust me? And she's like, no, I don't trust Jack.
Yeah, it's like great relationship. And then Madison spills the beans about Adrian to Lauren now that Amy's gone.
Yep. And then we see Jack having an awkward talk. Oh, so then Jack goes up and is like, hey, I heard I could live with you. Thanks, Lauren. And Madison's like, no, you can't.
Yep.
And so then Jack goes to talk to his coach about living with him. And it was awkward. And his coach is like, no.
No, that's inappropriate and could get me fired, and I need this job to pay for my family.
Yeah, and then we see Adrian back at school.
Yeah.
And she's ignoring Grace still, and then Zoe comes up to Grace, or to Adrian, and is like, hey, heard you have a little secret, and is like calling her out, like, I learned because I was with Ricky last night, and then all of a sudden, Grace goes up and pulls Zoe's hair.
Physically assaults her.
And is like, shut the fuck up. And it's like, damn. And then Adrian's still hates you.
Yep. And George is crying.
Yeah. Yeah. So then
like,
Anna's telling them down.
Go.
Yeah. And then we get Tom calling Jack. He calls Jack and is like, hey, I was supposed to ride the bus to my job interview, but I'm lost. Can you come get me? And Jack's like, yeah, no problem. Stay there. And then Jack gets there and Tom is like, I just didn't want to take the bus. So Jack drops him off, but is like, you need to figure this out.
Yep.
Then we get back to the school and Griffin is talking to Ashley about Ricky and Grant and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's like talking about Grant, and then all of a sudden Ricky walks by, and Ashley and Ricky have George had called Griffin and was telling him about Grant, and so he does the thing where he gets in the middle of it, and then Ricky walks by, and Ashley gives some eyes to Ricky, and Griffin freaks out and is like, "You like him? That's not okay. That's gross."
Yeah, and she's just like, "Chill out, dude."
Yeah,
and then she says something like, I'm not going to get with Ricky because he's like a brother, but Grant could actually hurt me, so I don't want to get close to him. And Griffin's just like, I see right through you, honey.
Yeah. And then we get Ben and Amy are making out at the airport.
See, you did have stuff about the airport.
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
they're in the back of the car.
Hideous makeout session in front of the dad.
Leo is very awkward. It was very awkward for Leo, and Leo's like, because Leo also knows that, like, hey, my son has another girl pregnant.
Yeah.
And is like, Ben, you guys need to stop. Go, bye.
Yep.
And then, Ben and Leo are talking after Amy leaves, and Leo's like, have you told her yet? And he's like, no. And then Ben's like, Adrian's too selfish to have a baby.
Yeah, so he just thinks it's all going to go away. And he won't have to tell anybody, and he can continue living in Ben and Amy Fantasyland.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then after that's when Jack actually gets Tom, and Tom doesn't like the bus. Sorry. And then we see Ben at work, and Bunny confronts him about Adrian, and then Bunny hugs Ben.
She can see he's going through some shit.
Mm-hmm. And then we get to the worst part of this episode when Cindy telling Ruben that Adrian wants an abortion.
Yeah, my only notes for it are Ruben being a dick.
And Ruben is way against that, and Cindy and Ruben fight, basically saying, like, Ruben doesn't want her to have an abortion. Cindy's like, she can do whatever she wants. And then Ruben is basically like, this family's fucked. I'm leaving if she gets an abortion. Blah, blah, blah. Then we see Grace is supportive to Adrian.
And she shows her new car.
Yeah, shows her new car. And then Adrian's like, if you wanted to do the right thing, Grace, you would have bought a hybrid.
Oh, that's right, because Grace goes up to Adrian and is like, hey, remember way back when we said we would help out Amy? Well, now that she's gone, I was thinking we could go help out at the daycare center and fill in for her. And then Adrian is like, oh, you want me to go see all these babies? And I see what you're doing.
Yeah, but it was great that she was like, if you wanted to do the right thing,
you would have bought a hybrid.
Yeah. And then we see Madison at Jack's house, and Jack gives her his mom's necklace.
The seagull.
The bird. And Madison is an ungrateful little brat and is like, oh, it's lovely. So that's awkward. And then we see Ricky and Ashley talking about Zoe at school, and it's awkward. And then Grant shows up, which I don't really know what happens.
Me either. I just have Ashley and Ricky talking. Grant comes over.
Yeah, and then I think he leaves when he sees them together. And then we get Amy calling home and talking to George about New York City and how she has an apartment, her own apartment and everything with a kitchen. And George is like, no, it's a dorm. Say it's a dorm. And is like freaking out because she's getting all this stuff.
And because she talked to the taxi driver.
Oh, yes.
And he's like, don't talk to the drivers.
Yes. And then we see Adrian sitting outside of her house. And Ruben comes home because Ruben had ran away when him and Cindy fought.
Yep.
And they talk about the baby, and he's still against abortion, but, you know, he's still going to be her dad.
Oh my God, if shit would stop falling on my desk, that would be great.
And then Adrian's like, well, I still am going to get an abortion. Yep. And so Ruben goes inside, and then all of a sudden Tom shows up at Adrian's house.
In a full tuxedo with a cane and a top hat.
And he asks her to dance, and then he proposes.
And she's like, I can't marry you,
and
Tom.
She's crying, and it's adorable. And Tom saves the day. Cool.
Okay, episode 5.
This one I have a lot of notes on.
I kind of do.
Yeah.
An average amount.
Yeah.
Look, you said we wouldn't have anything to talk about. We're already over an hour.
Well, because part of that was spent you eating and then yelling at me for skipping ahead.
Like 5 minutes.
Anywho.
Which way did she go? With Amy in New York at music camp, a ridiculous rumor that she is pregnant again spreads through school. Adrian has decided she does not want to keep the baby, but her parents argue over whose choice that should be. Jack moves into the Bowman's guest house with Tom,
Mhm.
and Ricky's living with the Jurgens to help with John. Ashley and Ricky share an intimate moment.
Why would they say that? Anywho. Amy calls her parents, and she is somehow awake and dressed at 7 a.m., even though it is 4 a.m. in California. And basically, they're like, why are you calling? It's early. And she's like, I don't know what to do or where to go. And they're like, you have a map, Amy. Figure it out. Because apparently she's incapable of talking to anybody. That was so
scary.
So then all of a sudden they're done talking, and Anne and George have sex again. And then we get to the school, and like you said, people are talking about Amy and are gossiping about her being pregnant. And Ashley and Ricky freak out about it, and they're like, she's not pregnant, shut up.
And then I guess I don't know if this happened then, but the gambling guy, the guy who does all of the shady shit, it's like, hey, what are the odds on teen moms becoming moms again so I could get my odds right on the betting?
Yeah. So that was when like they're all freaking out. And then we see Grace and Ricky talking, and Grace wants to be friends with Ricky, and he says no. Which is weird. And then Grace and Adrian talk again, kinda, and it was super awkward. And then Ben and Adrian talk. And then, that's when everyone is doubting Amy's musical talent. They're like, she's not that good at French horn. Like, why is she in this music program? She's definitely pregnant.
But then they're also like, well, she's first chair and she's a sophomore.
They're like, well, have you heard the second chair? And then we see Jack told his parents that he found a place to stay. And then Grace and Jack talk about Adrian, and he's still telling Grace to, like, stay the fuck out of it. Grace just can't. And then Adrian and Ben talk, and she lets him know that she's got an appointment the next day to have an abortion.
Mm.
And then Grace goes up to Adrian and is like, hey, can we hang out tomorrow? And Adrian's like, I'm busy. And then Henry and Alice confront Lauren and Madison about Adrian. And they finally all just are like, yeah, she's pregnant. And then that makes Henry and Alice talk. And Henry says, poor Adrian. And Alice is like, poor Adrian, poor Ben. And basically they agree, though, it's best to not talk about it and stay out of it. And then Henry's like, would you tell me if you were pregnant and getting an abortion? And Alice said she doesn't know.
And then they're like, something like, I'll marry you or something. And she's like, well, let's just wait a while. Yeah. Make sure that doesn't happen or something.
And then we see Tom at his job interview, which I thought was like yesterday, but I guess it's today.
Maybe we see him actually in the interview, because we just kind of saw him in the...
But like it's a whole new day.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I was getting confused, because I missed some stuff at the beginning of the episode, and then like where my notes picked back up, it was Tom at interview, and I was like, I don't...
Yeah.
Maybe he had a second interview.
Yeah, and it looks like Tom has some competition. There's another guy sitting there, and they're kind of talking. And basically, like, this guy used to be like the head of a company, and the company closed down because of like
the fraud. Pandemic.
Or fraud. And they find out that they're both interviewing for the mailroom position.
And they're like competing on who deserves it more.
Yeah, like obviously Tom has Down syndrome, and it's like his first job. And this guy's like, well, I have a family, but like he's a terrible person.
We do see more of him though later on in the season. I remembered stuff when I saw him again. I was like, oh, all right, you do come back in the picture. I remember.
And then we see Ben at work, and he's whining to Ricky about Adrian and everything, and Ben is worried about Amy finding out about Adrian. And then Ben and Ricky talk about abortion. And then Ben is freaking out, and Ricky says it's Adrian's decision and it's his job to stand by Adrian.
Yep.
And then we see Jack at Tom's new apartment because during...
Not an apartment, it's the guest house.
During Tom's car ride the day before, Jack is like, hey, you're living in the guest house. Like, how would I just stay there with you because, it's haunted?
Yeah.
But, we don't need to tell anyone about it because we don't want people to know you're scared. So...
They worked that out.
Yeah, Jack's staying there in secret, and then they're hungry. And so Jack finds some brownies frozen in the freezer to nibble on. And then we see Ricky doing dishes at the Juergens house, and Anne's like, oh, that's so sweet. You don't have to do that.
And they share a sweet convo about why Amy's playing the French horn. Because when she was a kid, Anne used to play her the song Peter and the Wolf. And the French horn is an important part of that song because it's the part of the wolf. And I guess when she was in third grade, she's like, I'm going to play the French horn so I become the wolf and I'm not afraid of the wolf anymore.
Because I want my mom to love me.
Yeah. And it was like, oh.
Yeah.
Wins Anne over.
Yeah, and then we see Jack eating the frozen brownies and offers one to Tom. And so they eat that. And
have
then
a little bro moment.
Yeah, and then we see Ben talking to Adrian and offers to bring her to the abortion, and she said no, and he can't go with, but that they will hang out on Sunday.
Yeah. Then we get more fighting between Ruben and Cindy.
And
then George and Ashley have a convo, and George confronts Ashley about Adrian, and Ashley's like, I don't know if she's still pregnant or not. She wanted an abortion. I don't really know much about it. Adrian just wants to deal with it on her own.
Because George could hear Ruben and Cindy fighting all the way at their house. And then while they're talking, Ricky comes in with Robbie and to give to George. And so George takes Robbie back inside, and that leaves Ricky and Ashley alone.
And Ricky can see that Ashley's upset.
Yeah,
so and he hugs her.
And she starts crying. And she asks Ricky, does the right girl ever find the right guy? And he says yes. And so she takes that as Ricky saying that he's the right guy for her. And she tries to kiss him. And he says no. And then she kisses him again, and he kisses back.
But then he leaves quickly.
No, he walks away. And and then we have Adrian left her house and left a note to Cindy and Ruben saying, like, be back later. Cindy tells Ruben that this is all his fault.
It is.
And Adrian left her phone. And so we see Jack and Tom after they're eating their brownies. And it looks like they might have been some special brownies, but they were unaware of that. And Grace called Jack. He doesn't answer. And
he does answer.
Yep. And then... but hangs up.
Yeah, but it's also, I think she's looking for Adrian.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not with Adrian. Are you with Adrian? And she's like, why would I be calling you looking for Adrian if I was with Adrian? And he's like, and then he hangs up, I think.
And then she calls Tom. Same question. And then Tom goes inside and sees that she's been baking cookies, and he takes the tray of cookies.
Yep.
And then they're aware that they're high, and Tom is like, oh no, I have a mandatory drug test on Monday.
Yep. Like, that's the easy test you had?
Yeah. And then we see Anne and George are having sex again.
They're really working on having a fourth baby.
Yeah. And then we see Ruben calling all of Adrian's friends, trying to find her. He calls Grace first, or he calls Ashley first. And then Ashley's like, nope, don't have her. And then Ashley calls Adrian back, even though Ruben just called from Adrian's phone. Then he does the same thing to Grace, and Grace does the same thing that Ashley's did, and they're just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Grace going to Tom's guest house and finding Jack, or finds Jack's gym bag there, and Jack's hiding in the shower, falls asleep there.
We also find out that Grace's dad used to let a homeless man stay in the guest house, and that's where the
brownies
brownies are presumably from.
Yeah. And so then we see Leo calling Ruben and letting him know that Adrian is safe and at their house.
We also see Lauren and Madison, because since Jack's been living in the guest house, but in secret, he parks like a block away. And then Madison drives past his truck once, and he's like, whose house is that? So her and Lauren go and stake out the truck for hours all night. Because they presume Jack's cheating.
And then we get to the best part of this episode.
What one's that?
The video montage of Amy in New York.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, Amy was trying to find her way around New York and somehow had candid pictures taken of her, all staged.
I was trying to figure out why they would do that, and I don't know. I was like, maybe it was they didn't want to spend the money to get a filming permit in New York, so they just like went there one day and did a photo shoot, and everything else is on a set.
She was like filming a movie, like maybe she was filming Spectacular Now.
Maybe.
And that's why she's kind of like not around a lot this season. Because I was trying to figure out what other movies she was in around this time frame. And it wouldn't have been The Fault in Our Stars.
Was the Divergent series, or is that too soon too?
That's too soon. I think it would have been Spectacular Now, because I'm thinking of her hair.
Oh yeah, maybe that was like filmed in upstate New York, so she like had a day to go down and take photos, but they didn't have time to film anything.
Yeah, because that's when she still looked like innocent looking with her long hair. And then I think it was the Divergent series, and in between the Divergent series, she had Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah, it's like, that's just kind of dumb. Yeah. Oh well.
So then we see this weird thing of Amy, and then all of a sudden, it's the next day, and she gets a knock on her door, and it's a classmate like, hey, I'm your buddy, and it's Bristol Palin.
Is it?
It is.
I knew they said the name was Bristol, but I guess I don't know what Bristol Palin looks like.
Must have been during Sarah Palin's vice presidency candidacy, because it was like the big deal that she had the teen daughter who was pregnant, or teen mom daughter.
It would have been later than that, because this would have been filmed in 09 or 10. Because the episode
must have been after, and then
you have a show.
She didn't, but she was a few years ago. She was on Teen Mom 2, and her oldest son was on Dancing with the Stars Juniors last year. But so this was around the time she had her son when she was a teen mom. And was like, and then that's when Amy learns that this is actually a music program for teen moms.
Yeah, and she gets bummed.
Yeah, she's like, oh, so I didn't earn this by being a good musician, and yeah.
It's like, I think you still did.
Yeah. And then we see George and Anne in bed talking about Amy and having too much freedom. And then Amy's like, or Anne's like, it's a dorm, whatever.
Yeah, and she's also happy that Ricky's here, and she sees it as an opportunity to get to know him better, because we don't know what's going to happen down the line. They may get together.
And then tells George about the French horn story. Yeah. And then we go back to the Bowman's guest house, and Jack is sleeping in the shower, and Grace and Tom are passed out. And then we get Jack getting a phone call from Madison. It's like, where are you? And then calls him out for allegedly cheating, which he didn't. And then we see Ricky and Ashley in the kitchen, and Ashley's like, how about we forget that happened? And Ricky says no.
Also, oh no, we did do that. Never mind.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Henry and Allison at Ben's house, talking to him about Adrian's appointment, and Leo comes in and says that Ben should go to the clinic. Doesn't have to drive her, but it's like, you should just be there for her.
I was like, I don't think he should. If Adrian said she doesn't want him there, he shouldn't be there. Seems like kind of an intimate appointment.
Well, it's still his kid.
Yeah, but
he's like, she doesn't. No, basically said like, she's not going to need you during the appointment, but she'll need you after. Yeah. So be there for her when she's done. So go to the clinic and wait.
But I think she might also just want to be with her mom.
Well, I don't know.
It's not like her and Ben are friends. They're not that close.
They were just together the night before. She went there to get away.
Yeah, but that's because she didn't have anywhere else to go. She doesn't want to talk to Grace about this. She doesn't want to talk to Jack.
Anywho, we see that morning. Well, I don't think they know that Cindy's taking her. They think she's going alone.
Well, she had also told Ben, like, I'm going to wait for my mom to get home, and we're going to go do this.
Well, we get to Adrian's house, and Adrian and Cindy are getting ready to leave for the appointment, and Ruben apologizes to them and is like, we are family. If this is your decision, like, I don't support it, but it's your decision, and then asks if they want him to go with. And they said no. And that's where we end up.
Yeah. Not a lot happens, just a bunch of little shit. Mostly just fights.
Yep. Well, the span of 2 days.
Well, what'd you get up to this week, Callie?
Hold on.
What did I get up to this week?
Yeah, what did you do?
I don't know. What did I do? I watched
the week Dairy Girls. Work.
Yeah, but I didn't do much.
You watched Virgin River.
I started it, and then I fell asleep during it yesterday, so I watched like one episode.
What did I watch last week? I watched the Zac Efron show thing. It was good. And then, what else did I watch? What did I do? Oh, well, Saturday when I got my bridesmaid dress altered in Buffalo. Then we had a birthday party for Nick's cousin. Just Parrot's house. And Sunday, what did I do? What did we do? Well, Friday I took off of work and deep cleaned my apartment. Sunday I did nothing. And then yesterday we had to take Finn to the vet to get his x-ray. And his stomach and kidneys and bladder are fine. He just has some anxiety. That's what they think. So we're going to try some kitty Xanax. So he's had his first pill today. First half of a pill today, and then we give him the other half tonight. He hasn't had any accidents. And he's not knocked out, which is good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Anything else?
Well, I don't know. You cut me off when I was going on my shit.
Well, I thought you were done.
Oh, I'd gotten one show out. I said one thing.
All right. Well, what else did you do?
I watched the Dairy Girls. I watched The Watchmen. Watched a lot of movies.
What movies?
Watched Vivarium on Amazon.
What's that about?
Well, in my last podcast, I described it. It's with Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poot, and they are looking to buy a house. So they go meet with this guy, and they look at a house in one of those neighborhoods where all the houses look the same. And then they try to leave, but they get stuck, and then they're trapped in this house. And then there's some weird shit that happens.
Yeah.
I watched The Assistant this morning. Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, I think we watched a movie. Fuck. Oh, we watched the movie that I told you about. That's about that thing in West Virginia about the water. Dark Waters. That's about the Teflon poisoning in West Virginia that occurred. That was super cool with Mark Ruffalo. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm going to go pee as usual.
Cool.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.